This time, I put in a little extra effort to speed up our search a bit. There are still plenty of interesting things ahead of us. By the way, how did you like the last video? The interview from the previous video contains some parts that we'll come back to later. I expect we still have about 2 or 3 videos left in this series. I also changed the opening frame of the video so it wouldn't get too familiar. It would be a shame if it did. And besides, I've saved this frame carefully because it will play a crucial role in our reveal. But back to the Egyptian frescoes. There are many of them, and the symbols are constantly repeated. They all convey the same message, and we'll take a look at the most interesting, and perhaps also the best known of them. Then we'll head to the Valley of the Kings. Let's start with this image, in which we see Isis as the goddess of the earth. She carries the Ankh, the cross of life, which belongs to women, and the sun is above her head. Another of her spiritual forms is the winged scarab, whose cartouche we see here. A woman with the sun above her head. And if you look closely, the scarab is positioned above a bowl, which is the Egyptian symbol for the Holy Grail, that is, the mother's womb. The 3 vertical lines likely represent sunbeams streaming through the scarab's body. Beneath the cartouche, the symbol of a woman appears once again, the cross of life, as well as what I assume to be a biblical horn, which is simply another expression of the human spirit. And since repetition is the mother of wisdom, let's remind ourselves that men are depicted as walking jeds, that is, penises, and women as crosses of life, the womb. We've already explained their anatomy in one of the previous videos. There is also a figure of a woman sitting on a bowl. It may look to you like a stool with fringes around the edges, but let's take a look at the following Egyptian engravings. Here we see, yes, the same stool as in the previous painting. It has legs, so it's a walking vessel, yet another representation of the cross of life, where the bowl represents its upper part, the mother's womb. Something is growing out of this vessel, and notice that it's overflowing. In the second engraving, we see a walking vessel that is pouring out. This represents male fertility, with the man's vessel pouring into the woman's vessel. We can say that this is a kind of symbol of fertility. And here is an engraving of a walking fish. The fish represents the soul and appears frequently in Christianity. With a bit of hyperbole, we could say that the fish, the soul, emerging from the vessels of a man and a woman, is a human being. A woman in labor, the newborn human being, is that fish, the human soul in a solid body. Here is a remarkable detail of the engraving. These are, once again, vessels, the so-called holy grails, from which souls emerge in the form of butterflies or birds. We also see stars because the human soul is a radiant light. Why is Egyptian history so complex, with its pharaonic dynasties and empty pyramids? Is this topic too controversial? Or is it simply too far beyond any normal human understanding? Let's move on. A woman is holding two sacred cobras. We see this scene across civilizations and through the ages. One of the oldest and best-known examples is the gate at Tiwanaku. A woman in the form of a lion is holding two snakes. On both sides, we see numerous birds representing human souls. Next is Ishtar, Inanna. Here she stands on two lions with a goat by her side. This piece comes from Mesopotamia. Another woman is from Crete. She is likely wearing a lion figurine on her head instead of the sun, because the lion is the spiritual symbol of the sun. This woman holding snakes in her hands comes from the Minoan culture. And once again, Egypt. This time, the sun takes the form of a hybrid of a human and a lion. The woman holds two snakes, a lion, a goat, and two scorpions in her hands. And notice what she's standing on. It's a crocodile, and in Egyptian mythology, the crocodile is Sobek. This is another form of the biblical serpent, the dragon. In other words, a woman with the sun above her head, standing or sitting on a serpent. And then there's a statue standing somewhere in St. Louis that, like the Statue of Liberty, has 7 biblical horns on its head, is entwined by 2 snakes, and stands on the earth's core. While the Statue of Liberty holds an eternal flame, and the symbol of wings is replaced here by a broken chain on her leg. The statue in St. Louis, on the other hand, has wings as a symbol of freedom and independence. She is considered a primordial goddess. Two vessels and snakes are emerging from them, snakes that probably don't really belong here, but we find the same symbol in Indian history. The Indian lotus flower resembles a woman's womb. Around it, we see 4 human orbs, and inside the womb is what appears to be a human embryo wrapped in a snake. However, the shape also resembles a penis. They don't even try to hide it anymore. Here we see, from the left, the sun sending its rays to all living things on Earth. Along with the sun's rays, radiant male orbs also reach the Earth. Next to it is the Djed, that is, the penis, a male symbol representing both the sun and the serpent that held the sun in its mouth. On the right, we see the upper part of the cross of life. It is the same as the one held, for example, by the goddesses Inanna and Ishtar. Below it is a snake and water. Unfortunately, I don't know what the hand symbol means. Perhaps it represents receiving something. But when I see the line extending from the water to the hand, it could be a baptism. What do you think? In religion, baptism is merely a ceremony. In reality, baptism takes place in the mother's womb during pregnancy. It is a baptism by the mother's water and blood. There is an eye in the center at the bottom, but the eye has no iris. People usually have an iris, but when we reflect on the Bible and our own blindness, perhaps the iris is necessary only for our world. blindness consists of seeing only a very narrow spectrum of light. Above the eye is something that resembles a wing, the wing of a bird or an angel. I don't know why the Ankh doesn't have a lower part here, but maybe it has something to do with those arches. You surely remember the forks that weave the thread in this sculpture. They represent the mother's DNA and the father's DNA. But in this engraving, they are turned vertically and have no strands. Our DNA is a set of information necessary for building the body. It is therefore likely that angelic beings do not need DNA. They are beings of light. Our DNA does not leave with the soul, but is lost along with the decomposition of the body. Let's take a look at another engraving. Here we have the Ankh, a symbol of womanhood, which is holding, it looks like a fan, the kind we see in some blockbuster movies. But why is the Ankh holding it? This fan comes from Tutankhamun's tomb and depicts the cartouches of Osiris and Isis, symbols of Adam and Eve, the lion and the eagle, or the sun and the moon. As you can see, it's not at all easy to decipher. Egyptian mythology lists so many names for the same entity. Another illustration of a fan. Here we see two warriors, and next to each one stands a cross of life with this fan. It appears that this is not a fan, but some kind of ceremonial object. Here, too, it doesn't look like a fan. Notice the disproportion between the size of the person and this object. This object is probably very important, which is more than can be said for the fan. And what's that on the Sphinx's back? I can't help but keep seeing the same object. And since we saw cartouches of Osiris and Isis on Tutankhamun's fan, this is likely another depiction of the lotus flower. The lotus flower, as we've discussed, is the result of the fertilization of a human egg. And look at this, a woman giving birth who appears to be sitting beneath a lotus stem. It's a bit crudely rendered, but the lotus flower can't be there anymore because it has transformed into a new human being. We must not forget the second symbol that is here. You can see that both the Ankh and the second object are positioned above the vessel, that is, the female womb. The second object holds a bow and represents the male aspect. Oh my! I completely forgot to explain what this is all about. I'll fix that right away. This Egyptian cross is actually a collection of the elements necessary for fertilization. As we have already explained, the Ankh is a diagram of the female reproductive system. Here in the center, we see the penis and, in effect, the epididymis with the vas deferens. In the small detail at the top is a biblical woman with the sun above her head. This depiction is very similar, except that the Ankh is holding the vas deferens and the penis is missing. In similar depictions, the Ankh and both vas deferens are placed inside a vessel. But it seems that this photograph doesn't show the whole thing, and part of the vessel, that is, the Holy Grail, is down here. And that's what it looks like in real life. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a fresco depicting a complete reproductive system yet. The testicles were always missing, but you'll see even more interesting photos. The bow symbol here is the same size as the supposed fan, that is, the lotus flower. In this case, it likely represents a target. But given the course of conception, I believe that this ankh bears the result of this arrow, and that is the unfolded lotus flower. The figure on the right is the real shooter. We'll take a look at 2 more frescoes, which are actually allegories of this concept. If you look to the left at the lotus flower bush, they look strikingly like our fan. In the background, we see the goddess Isis, and in the foreground, a man catches birds as they fly out of the flowers. This is an allegory of human souls. Notice that he is holding a snake in his left hand. Snake DNA contamination. In the second fresco, a man sits with a lion at his side. This is the spiritual form of Osiris, the sun. Isis sits at his feet while he shoots at birds flying out of lotuses. You can see that some of the birds have been hit by a bullet. I don't know exactly why that is, but one possible explanation is that some birds may represent free spirits, while others represent incarnating souls. What do you think? I believe this because there are not only so-called mortal humans living on Earth, but also human beings in angelic form. Some of you are surely familiar with the legend of Isis and Osiris, in which Isis visited Osiris on his deathbed and sat on his golden penis. This is also depicted here, except that Isis takes the spiritual form of a bird and carries the upper part of the ankh, just like Ishtar, the female womb. You'll find the same depiction on the Ica stones as well. The Ica stones are much older, even though science does not recognize their age. But we won't go into that now. This is a very old heart-shaped pendant. Yes, it is the heart that the Bible describes as a vessel of oil. Here, the oil symbolizes love. It appears very often in frescoes, such as here next to this lion. The heart is, in fact, the seat of the human soul. It is our ancient consciousness, our true self, which has been completely suppressed. Our brain dominates us, and the brain is controlled by the energies of the serpent. We'll see this in a moment in the next fresco. This detail is also quite interesting. It closely resembles a compass or dividers and may refer to a great architect, perhaps God himself. Judging by the length of the video, I got a little carried away today. So we'll discuss the secrets of tombs KV63 and KV62 next time. But I'll show you something else that will probably surprise you a lot. You may also come across this symbol in the frescoes. According to the interpretation of artificial intelligence, this is a series of hieroglyphic numbers and letters. On the left, we see something resembling a double pyramid. On the right, a symbol representing a woman and a man. Interestingly, the symbol for a man is depicted as a Y chromosome with a snake symbol. However, I thought for a long time about what this could be, and it occurred to me that it might be a sperm cell. But what's that little bow doing there? Oh my! It seems like Egyptian historical artifacts are like one giant gynecological and genetic laboratory. After a sperm penetrates the egg, it loses its tail. A burst of energy occurs, and the last remnants of the male mitochondria are destroyed and replaced by the mother's mitochondria. The mitochondria contained in the sperm serve as an energy reserve for just long enough to reach its destination. After that, the sperm dies. There are actually 2 sperm cells in this fresco, and you may recall my suspicion that human DNA was being manipulated. Notice the goat-shaped staff, as well as the crutch and some kind of whip. We find all of these in Tutankhamun's sarcophagus, and we're slowly getting closer to our goal. Although it's not very clear these are human sperm, and the container is probably being held by a woman, we can even see 2 eggs in the container. This is the mother's womb. Something else is added to this vessel along with the sperm, something we'll see in a moment in another fresco. It comes from a snake, and I've highlighted it here in purple. According to this illustration, the serpent, the dragon, holds the sun in its mouth and sends its sperm down to earth. But this is most likely just a metaphor for some kind of energy, since everything, living and non-living, has an energetic nature. In Egyptian frescoes, you can find quite a few examples of similar depictions of human fetuses and manipulation with them. And this is the situation we were talking about a moment ago. A woman sitting on a snake. The woman is depicted in green, with X-shaped bands across her breasts, perhaps the X chromosome, to indicate that she is a woman. But we also find the same letter X on the chest of the green figure in Tutankhamun's tomb. This is probably not a reference to a reptilian, but rather to the color of the heart chakra. We'll come back to this next time. So the woman controls the snake, and it appears that the snake is spitting saliva at the kneeling, bound, headless people. The saliva likely represents a kind of energy that controls the human brain. The people here seem to lack their own judgment and free will. We have completely lost who we originally were, and our memories have been completely blocked. The human soul takes many forms in Egyptian mythology. Birds, butterflies, and other animal forms frequently alternate on a single figure. The human soul is formless, but it has the ability to transform into these forms, just as shown in these engravings. And as I mentioned, it can also project solid objects, such as an airplane or a ship, or even a cactus, as Linda Moulton Howe pointed out. This is not a privilege reserved for the so-called reptilians. It is also a characteristic of human angels. It is a manifestation of light energy. All the so-called pharaohs depicted here were not human beings of flesh and bones. They were angels. To wrap things up, I'll mention one more interesting detail. It's this peculiar headdress, which we see very often in the frescoes. Later on, it began to appear in art in the form of a Phrygian cap, which became a symbol of freedom and independence in both American and, for example, French history. Does this perhaps mean that these people were angels? Anything is possible, but other countries have adopted this cap in place of a crown. You'll find it on the coats of arms of Argentina, Cuba, and Nicaragua. It is also the traditional headdress worn by English women in the Caucasus. Take a look at what these emblems have in common besides the Phrygian cap. They feature twigs, which symbolize life energy. It is the same twig carried by the biblical dove. In fact, it was an eagle. We also see the sun, a pyramid, and, on the emblem on the left, even the solar key, one of the two Vatican keys. And if you're familiar with the Smurfs TV series, absolutely everyone in it wore a Phrygian cap. What about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? All the dwarves are wearing Phrygian caps. There are 7 dwarves, just like the number of horns on the Statue of Liberty's head. And wasn't the apple actually poisoned by the serpent? You can also find the Phrygian cap on the head of the American Statue of Columbia, and the name Columbia was also used to refer to America, the New World. The woman features all the elements used in Egyptian culture, stars and stripes in blue and red, just like the American flag. The Colombian coat of arms also features a Phrygian cap. At the top is an eagle holding a twig in its beak. This is another representation of the biblical dove. The inscription includes the words freedom and order. Yes, because the whole world is currently in chaos. The name America contains the initial letters of great civilizations. The name America encompasses the entire world. In the beginning, there was Atlantis, followed by the Maya civilization, Egypt, the Roman Empire, the Inca civilization, Colombia as the New World, and then Atlantis returns once more, which in fact represents the New World. Doesn't it seem like we're going back to the beginning? I've shared a lot today, and I could go on for hours. So, since I happened to come across this photo, I'll just share it. These are the 4 biblical angels, the 4 biblical beasts. Here they are depicted standing in a row, but in reality, each of them sits at one of the corners of the earth. This is the earth's pool, and our earth is the biblical mountain set within that pool. The beasts, the angels, send wind down to earth. The earth's pool serves as a pedestal, as we have seen many times before. And here, at the roots of the tree of life. For the earth is both a biblical mountain and a symbolic tree of life. A serpent has taken up residence. The serpent holds our sun in its mouth, even though it is not depicted here, and spins the sun around the biblical mountain. I don't know what else to say about this. You should do your own research. Pay close attention to the details and try to analyze them. There are plenty of symbols and clues to this global puzzle at every turn. I'll say goodbye for today, and I promise we'll take a look at the Valley of the Kings next time. I'm not sure when I'll have time off, but I'm finally going on vacation. Enjoy the summer and stay safe.
This man is a thief, and I don't want to talk to him. And I don't want his name to be mentioned.
In academics, there is
He is not academic. He is nothing.
In academic world, we do not do ad hominem arguments. We do not debate the man.
Listen,
we debate the matter.
The matter is debated really and it's closed.
No, it's not.
It is debated closed. It's closed in Chicago by all Australians, by everyone.
Then how you don't want to hear anything like that?
Exactly. I don't want to hear it.
Shame on you.
It's connected.
No, please, don't say this to me.
It is true. Because
Don't say this word to me. It's a shame on you, not on me.
to have an open discussion
Dr. Mary.
about all matters.
Don't talk to me. Please, go away from me. Shame on you. Why you say something to me?
Because
Why?
we should be able to openly discuss.
I don't want to. This man did bad things. I don't want to hear his name.
This man.
And I am going to call. I want to let this man not to enter this country at all. Because he's a cock.
Your own business.
It's not my own business.
Really, we should be able to have
Please, I don't want to talk to you. Please, leave me alone.
Don't talk.
So basically you're saying
Why someone talk about a killing of someone else? Why? Why is talking about a killing that has been closed? Why have to open the theory again?
The theory
Why?
is not closed.
It is closed.
No, it's not.
Everywhere. And I don't know why you talk about it. It's his fucking thing. Why do you talk about it?
It's
You
not.
have to present your own theory, not to present the
It
theory.
is not closed, Zach.
Okay, I closed it.
And I am
all
presenting-
academic world closed it.
I am presenting my own
Okay,
theory.
I'm not going to attend this.
I have
I'm going to
written
give my
books with
talk.
Mr. Butler.
I'm not going to attend this.
Even before a word is exchanged, one image, and Mr. Abbas leaves the room. Shame. I'm here. I'm willing to debate. I do believe this is a great shame for Egyptology.
well, he does not want to talk about the law.
Well, I'm sorry, Babar is central to the alternative argument.
Yeah.
We cannot have a discussion without Babar.